Bows come in a variety of shapes and sizes in Warframe, but so far I haven't met one that is as intricate and as interesting as the Cernos Prime. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today we're gonna be diving deeper into this Mastery Rank 12 primary weapon. As per the usual, I'm gonna be covering a cheap build, something affordable that anybody can build, but of course we also have the endgame setup with the Riven. That being said though, please keep in mind that my builds and guides follow a new player friendly approach, simply because there's a ton of information here and I want anybody watching to understand how the weapon functions and how it should be built. So if you're a veteran of the game and already know most of the stuff, you can either have a little bit of patience or skip ahead. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Cernos Prime. Let's begin by having a look at how the weapon behaves without any mods equipped, and for that I'm simply going to be taking a couple of free shots. The Cernos Prime by default will be firing free arrows without any multi-shot equipped. If you press your alternative fire or secondary fire, you will switch from a horizontal spread to a vertical spread, which of course will make it easier to land all of the arrows on a single target. Now keep in mind that this one is a tad tricky simply because if you try to change your fire mode while the arrows are in flight, you still hear that clickety clack, but it doesn't actually change, so you need to change it while all the arrows are not flying, so bear that one in mind. It is a little bit annoying in gameplay when you quickly want to change from one fire mode to the other. And well, that's pretty much it. It's a bow, you have travel time and a slight arc and a drop off to the projectiles as well. And as you can see, the default spread on these is rather large, so bear that one in mind. Let's jump into stats to see precisely what we're dealing with. First of all, mod capacity is gonna be 60 out of 60, and if your Cernos Prime has only 30 out of 30, simply jump into actions and install the Auto King Catalyst. Now this one can be found from alerts, invasions, or if you're lucky, from the daily sortie, and you can also pay 20 plat to have this one installed. Next, my Cernos Prime has been formatted a total of 3 times, but this was done only for the purpose of testing. For the weapon build, I'm recommending you guys 2 formats should do it. That is because the Cernos Prime by default comes with 2 Vs, and all you guys gotta do is add 1 V and 1 dash, or 2 Vs depending on what build you're gonna be choosing. If we take a look at the stats over here, you will notice that the critical chance, status chance, and so on and so forth are identical between vertical spread and horizontal spread, so it only really affects the trajectory of the arrows. The accuracy is gonna be 16.7, which is pretty much par for the course when it comes to bows, but I do wanna highlight heavy caliber because it functions kinda kooky. This one takes away 55% of your accuracy, and normally you shouldn't go near this one when it comes to traditional style bows, but let's slap on some multi-shot so you can see the effect a bit more clearly. In horizontal spread, as you might expect, all the arrows are all over the place, so it's not exactly usable, but if you switch to a vertical spread, then this one will act like a horizontal spread without the negative of heavy caliber. Why is this? I have no clue whatsoever. Normally I use the Cernos Prime in vertical spread because it's a lot easier to land all of the arrows on a single target. But if you want to use it as a horizontal spread, you can even go with heavy caliber, but make sure to switch to vertical spread. Did that make any sorts of sense? In any case, it does function kinda kooky. Back to stats. Let's remove all of these so we can take a look at critical chance, charge rate, and so on and so forth. Critical chance is fantastic, 35% is pretty good, and a decent crit multi at 2.0x. A magazine of 1, of course it is silent, a punch through by default of 1 meter, which in some cases is enough and other cases not so much, and a reload of 0.7. Now this represents how fast you're pulling your arrow from your quiver. The Riven disposition for the Cernos Prime is 2 out of 5. The Cernos family is quite popular, so the Riven disposition is rather low. However, 2 out of 5 means, from my point of view at least, that the Rivens are still worth getting for this one. However, they're not exactly super cheap. Status chance of 30%, and you might say, oh, that's awesome. However, it kinda acts like a shotgun. Your status chance will be getting divided by the number of arrows you're firing. So by default you're firing 3 without any multi-shot. That gets divided to around 10%. It's not exactly 10%, it's 11 point something because it works kind of kooky, but again, bear that one in mind. If we take a look at the default damage, this is the biggest problem with the Cernos Prime. You got impact, puncture, and slash. However, impact is the highest by a mile, so there's no way to get the puncture or the slash higher than the impact without a negative impact Riven, and even then you would have kind of bit of a trouble to get slash up or something like that. In any case, let's start slapping on some mods, starting with mandatory mod Serration, and once again, if you want to use it in that kooky way, you can go for heavy caliber as well. Next, the multi-shot, the best thing on everything, vigilante armaments and split chamber, 90% with 60%. Critical chance and critical damage is a must for the Cernos Prime, so we're gonna go with point strike and vital sense as well. 87.5% critical chance just with point strike alone. And if you guys got Argon Scope, that will push you way over 100%. And we gotta kinda stop here and decide what we're gonna be doing with the bow. You can build it for status, you can build it for elemental, you can build it for bleeds. I'm gonna be showcasing a version of each build and you guys get to decide exactly which do you prefer. First, let's go the standard route. For an elemental setup, and elemental damage should always be applied depending on circumstance. Where are you going, who are you fighting, and so on and so forth. If you're going up against the infested, then I would recommend AoE weapons heavily modded into heat. Corvus faction, however, have big shields, and against big shields you can build magnetic damage, but a smarter idea, especially for status weapons, would be to build gas or toxin, as it bypasses their shields entirely and deals damage to their health. When you're talking about the Grenier, these are the toughest targets in Warframe, sentience not counting of course, and against Grenier you always gotta keep in mind what kind of armor they have on. Alloy, which is weak to radiation damage, and Ferrite, which is weak to corrosive damage. Against Grenier, your best option more often than not is to build corrosive, which is the elemental combo between electricity and toxin. So let's build some, shall we? Now here's the question, should I go for the 90 mods or for the 60-60 mods? Now bearing in mind that my status chance will be getting divided among my arrows, let's make a short comparison between the 60s and the 90s. Of course, the 90s give more damage, but the difference would be in status chance. High voltage, and for the toxin one, I believe it's called malignant force. There we go. I got a 93.3% status chance. However, how many arrows am I firing? Well, with all this multi-shot slapped on, I got 7.5 arrows per shot. Now, you're not gonna be firing half an arrow. That means that per shot you got a 50% chance at an 8th arrow, so bear that one in mind. Taking into account that I will be firing, let's say, 8 arrows, best case scenario, then my status chance with all this multi-shot on is gonna be something like 12-ish%. 11 point something in any case. That's interesting. What about the 90 mods? What if I take these off completely and go for the 90 mods? I'm down to 59.0% base shot status chance, and that once again will be getting divided by 7.5 the amount of arrows that I'm firing. In this case, my status chance per arrow is down to 7.5%. So basically that's the difference. Because the status chance does get divided, that's the difference you're looking at. Now you might be tempted to believe, hey, since the status chance is getting divided among the arrows, that means that the damage is also getting divided. No, multi-shot added to this weapon will not be further dividing the damage among the arrows. All the damage will be getting divided by 3 per arrow. You get it? So it doesn't go above 3 just because I added more multi-shot. The Cernos Prime works a little bit kooky, and I guess I should be mentioning that it also has a 50% damage bonus on headshots, and this apparently is a unique thing to the Cernos Prime, so bear that one in mind. You kinda gotta go for headshots. What about the last mod slot? Well, this is what I like to call an option slot. Plug into this one whatever you feel comfortable with. For example, some fire rate would be good, and perhaps some more punch through, because again it only has a meter, so you can go for shred or prime shred. When it comes to fire rate, one of the best options that you want to be, like, let's say you want to be safe with your mods and don't want to reduce your damage, this is going to be speed trigger with 60% fire rate, bringing down your charge rate to 0.23. My favorite to this day remains Vile Acceleration. It only takes 15% damage away from something like Serration, so it's not a multiplicative after effect or something like that. Vile Acceleration is a corrupted mod. Link in the cards right now if you want to know how to farm corrupted mods. Now in my testing, for an elemental build such as this, the best course of action, believe it or not, was to go for both 60s and 90s. I know you don't like my choice, but again, this was the best one in testing, so this is what I'm going to be recommending for a corrosive base build. My status chance goes up to 87.1, and I also took off some multi-shot vigilante armaments, so I'm not getting that big of a divide as before, and I got a ton of corrosive on the weapon, 5,438. What am I proccing anyway? Well, I'm gonna be proccing a whole lot of impact, because impact, puncture, and slash, the physical types, have a 4 times greater chance of proccing over elemental types, so impact is way in front of the corrosive. There's not much I can do about it, but it's gonna be second on the proc picking priority, and let's see what the weapon is capable of. This is gonna be a standard build, then we're gonna be switching it up to a status based build. Yes, that should prove interesting as well. Let's take a free shot so Volt's passive doesn't get in the way, and I'm gonna switch to a vertical spread like mentioned before. So as you can see, it does deal quite a little bit of damage, and the more status apps, the more corrosive apps I get on my targets, the more damage I will be dealing with the Cernos Prime. Take a look at that. Now that is definitely impressive. Now of course, because of the spread on the weapon, you kind of gotta adjust your aim. Even though you get that base 50% extra damage on headshot, you see I'm aiming for the chest so I can get a headshot with kind of like the top arrow, something like that. The damage it deals with a build such as this, I want to say is decent, but we can do a whole lot better than that. Let's try to go for a more status approach, shall we? We got a base status chance of 30%, that means that we can reach the magic 100% status chance before multishot with all the 60/60 mods. Once again, shotgun style for the most part. So take off these 90 mods, so we're gonna go to more status, rhyme rounds, and Thermite rounds, and now I got a 100% status chance before multishot, as you can see. What am I proccing though? Well, in this case I got a combination of blast and corrosive, and depending on how you arrange these mods, you can make gas, magnetic, or viral and radiation depending on your own preferences, and depending of course on what kind of encounter you're looking at. For now, let's go with blast and corrosive and see what happens. 100% status chance, but I'm gonna be proccing a whole lot of impact. Once again, impact is out of reach, and that's gonna be prio number 1, followed by blast and corrosive around the same point. Because the weapon has that stupid high amount of impact, from my point of view, it's simply not worth building the Cernos Prime for a status effect. So let's try it like this. Let's switch to the horizontal spread. As you can see, I'm knocking my targets down. That's because of the blast. Not ideal, is it? Sadly not, but if you want the crowd control from blast, I guess you can go for something like this. I am proccing some corrosive as well, because again, all of my arrows now are applying a status effect to the target. Will it be blast, slash, impact, or whatever else. I got that 100% status chance before multi-shot effects. You can go for a build such as this. From my point of view, it's not really worth it, nor was the earlier build that we went for full corrosive with the 60s and the 90s. From my point of view, this weapon shines when you go for a bleed build, and that's what we're gonna be showcasing next. Of course, we got Serration, Split Chamber, Vital Sense, and Point Strike as mandatory mods. Vigilante Armaments is also here, but again, this is not 100% needed, and you'll see why exactly a tad later. Our slashes will be coming from Hunter Munitions, currently one of the most powerful mods in Warframe when it comes to primary weapons. This one will get you a 30% chance to apply slash on critical hit. What is my critical hit chance? 87.5%, and I am firing currently, again, 7.5 arrows per shot. Next, we gotta decide what's our final two mods. Going for viral damage in a combination with a slash build is always mostly a good idea, simply because viral on a status proc will be reducing the maximum health of a target to 50% for the duration of the viral effect. So in a way, for that limited amount of time, your slashes will be dealing double damage. And you can build viral with the 60/60 mods or the 90 mods. From my testing, going for the 90s was sufficient. I mean, the viral proc was consistent enough, not 100%, but there you go. We're gonna be going for something like this. We got viral 4293. It's still not prio number 1, of course. Nothing can beat impact, but let's test the weapon out like this and see what kind of results we're gonna be getting. Same targets as before, and of course a vertical spread. Let's put a couple of arrows in this guy. You see, no viral yet. Plenty of slashes, and there's the viral effect, and the slashes are absolutely murdering the target. From my point of view, for the Cernos Prime, a build such as this works a whole lot better. Now, you can further augment it with something like Argon Scope and bladed rounds. More critical chance and more critical damage. More critical damage will mean that your slashes will be higher, the value of the slashes, and a higher critical chance will mean that you're getting more slashes out of Hunter Munitions. As you can see, the viral proc is not 100% reliable, but you can switch it up to the 60/60 mods. However, that would also mean that you're dropping a fair bit of damage, so bear that one in mind. Let's try it with Argon Scope and bladed rounds next, but as you saw there, you have the potential, if you get a little bit lucky with your procs, even to one-shot a target. And now I'm no longer reliant on my status chance since I'm getting them through critical chance. So let's drop these two and we're gonna be going for more crit chance and crit damage. Once again, Argon Scope will mean more crits, more slashes out of Hunter Munitions, and bladed rounds will mean more critical damage. Therefore, the value of my slashes will be higher, going to a crit multi of 6.8. There we go. Once again, switch to vertical spread. Make sure you switch before you actually enter combat. It's so bloody annoying. Now, to get the most out of a build such as this, I'm gonna have to get a kill first. But I do love those orange crits. They're not red crits, orange crits, but there you go. Now I got the bonus from bladed rounds. Take a look at that. Now that is absolutely bloody beautiful. All those slashes on the target, and of course the punch through is working as well, hitting the target behind it. And you can get lucky with the procs to one-shot a high-level target. Pretty good, isn't it? One more time. 2 shots on the target, high bleeds, absolutely bloody fantastic. As long as you're able to keep the buff from bladed rounds. In normal everyday missions, you're going to be getting plenty of kills, so you shouldn't really have any problem keeping the buff from bladed rounds up. Take a look at the value of the slashes, 4,500 on a high, and about, oh wow, that was an 8,700 plus. This is the way to go from my point of view when it comes to the Cernos Prime. Status is not really worth it simply because of the high amount of impact, unless you guys have a Riven and you can play around with minus impact. Speaking of Rivens, take a look at this one, the Cernos Prime. We got critical damage and damage. The values on the Rivens are not gonna be fantastic because again, it is a Dispo 2. You can get higher values if you manage to get a double positive with a negative, something like that. And as you can see, this is the same build as before. I simply drop Vigilante armaments for the Riven. Now let's see what kind of results can a Dispo 2 Riven get. I think I paid, I don't know how much, I forgot how much I paid for it. It was I think 250 or 300, something like that. And once again, I am going to be needing my, oh wow, look at that. Bladed rounds up, one shot on the target, 18,500 bleed. A single bleed on the target, will it be enough? It is enough to completely murder your target. Single shot, tons of, wow, that is just fantastic. Honestly, I wasn't expecting the Cernos Prime to one-shot its target, but it's fully capable of doing that. Yes, you do need to be a little bit lucky with the procs, that also should be said. But as you can see, this weapon can be an absolute monster and it can tear through high-level targets like nobody's business. My favorite weapon in the game, my favorite bow, sorry, in the game is the Dread Bow, but I do love how intricate and I do love how interesting the Cernos Prime is. Basically, they wanted to make some sort of a shotgun bow and it came out beautifully, and I do highly recommend this weapon. Now there's one more thing which I want to do, bump up everything with Warframe buffs, and for that we're going to be using Lady Mirage Prime. Now let's check out the buffs really quick. Rifle am 27% extra damage, and this will apply to bows as well. It's an aura, so everybody in your party will be receiving this benefit, and it is stackable ×4. If you're going up against Grenier, bear in mind that corrosive projection will always give you better results, but Rifle lamp will grant its benefit regardless of the target. When it comes to arcanes, these are a lot more impactful. Arcane Rage, on headshot you got a 10% chance for plus 120% damage to rifles for 16 seconds. I know it says rifles, but this is actually to primary weapons, so it will apply to the Cernos Prime. Farmable from the third Eidolon down on Cetus, if not from the trade chat I think it's 100 something plat. As for my second arcane, I'm gonna be using arcane acceleration so I can get a lot more arrows out faster. 60% fire rate rifles for 6 seconds on critical hit effect, and as you saw there, we're gonna be doing loads of critical hits with the Cernos Prime. A very, oh wait, no. Doesn't look fashionable. There we go, much better now. One more time, Corrupted Heavy Gunner level 120, and I'm even gonna be unpausing the AI so we can make a bit of more realistic situation. Activate Mirage's free ability and her first ability, and we're gonna go for a horizontal spread initially. Take a look at that. One shots, easy mode. Multiple one shots if you get lucky with your spread. And if I switch to a vertical spread, take a look at that. Now that is absolutely freaking beautiful. I highly recommend this weapon. It is fantastic, but it works a little bit kooky. You gotta understand exactly what are its strengths. Once again, go for a critical chance bleed build through Hunter Munitions, that would be my recommendation. And that's gonna be it for the review. As always, my name has been Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. If you have any feedback for me or would like to request a specific weapon review, then by all means, leave it in the comment section down below. Now, I can't realistically promise you that it will be done by next time or even within a week, but I will be reading through each and every comment. You can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. But until next time, guys, bye-bye.